Not in offense. You weren't looking for goals at that point.
However, think about this too. Walker was on a yellow card, and I know he had no options, but
and so was Davis.
Yeah, man. Given that, so I said to the supporters at the bar, I said, in my mind, 5 out of 10 times you're going to get a great performance from Lamela, and I think that we're just at this point that this is. I would say this is his second year. I know technically it's his third,
right.
But I do not think that's good enough. And I think that we're also at a point that we've gotten rid of all the other dead wood, and all the blame from here on out will always fall on Lamela.
Yeah, if it's warranted, absolutely. And listen, it may be warranted. I looked at the team sheet or the team roster again today. Adebayor and Lennon still do not have numbers. Those guys are going to be on the outs, and when you think about not only, when I went back and watched the match, I noticed something. It was like the 40th minute and 30 seconds. And a ball had just gone out for a throw, and the teams were both kind of lining up, and Kane was kind of bent over, and he was holding both shins. Now, I didn't know if he was like adjusting his shin pads, or if maybe he was cramping, or something may have been going on in his calf. He had a niggle going on. I don't know. But it seemed odd to me, and if you'll remember back, Mason had that one. It's like where feet came together and hit the ball at the same time, where he blocked a shot inside the 18. Oh man, what was it, about 30 minutes in the first half?
About 30
Lloris's loose pass.
Exactly.
Out.
So did that thing stiffen up on him, and that's why he became a little bit leggy. Both of those players obviously are in the plans for Roy Hodgson for England. They both played for the national team last year, or at least were on the rosters. Ray Lewington, his assistant coach, is in the stands, and both of those players get pulled off the pitch. To me, there has to be a legitimate injury concern from Pochettino, especially this early in the season, that you are not going to risk anything, especially with a 2-goal lead. You should be able to hold this. And people are going to look at the substitute, well, why did we do this and why did we do that? And I'm speculating. But I'm thinking that if you look back at the match and you really pay attention to watching both players as much as you can, I think that knock hurt Mason especially, but maybe Kane did have a little bit of something going on. They're not going to put ice on him for no reason.
What was bizarre about that?
Poch didn't say that was the reason.
But he's never going to say that's the reason.
Why not?
Really, let's be real. If you look at Poch's interviews, I would say that he truly understands. Given the blowback from Sherwood's, willy-nilly interviews, that if he goes out on a limb and sort of says maybe, the truth versus what the club wants him to say, he might, dig himself into a hole. So I always question Pochettino's interviews when he's saying what's going on with the team. Especially, what about Rose? He said he was fit. Why didn't he play?
Yeah, a week ago he said Soldado was in his plans.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, that's a great point, Ben. You just don't really know. What I do know is he's played him at every opportunity to the full extent that he can, pretty much all the time, with the exception of a little of preseason. The way that I look at it is if you're going to plan on taking off your lead horse, your star player in, the 63rd minute or whenever it was, you better have a pretty damn good plan. And we didn't. We really didn't. Or if he had a plan, it went to shit very quickly from just an absolute pure lack of execution. I'll just say this about Lamela. I don't doubt the talent that he has. I just don't know whether he can play in the Premier League. And I don't know whether he fits into our scheme of things when so much of what we do is predicated on speed and quick transition and being a threat. And he's simply... I can't talk about his potential. I can just only talk about what he's done, and he simply hasn't been effective. You guys all know real Danny, right, on Twitter, and he's such an utter human being. But he kind of stumped me. Yeah, he kind of stumped me today. He talked so much shit, but then he made a comment. He said, "Well, would Lennon be any less effective than Lamela?" And I'd have a hard time looking somebody in the eye and saying, in that situation, putting Lennon in there just to be a pure threat to somebody, whether he would be less effective than Lamela.
So to that point, how is Townsend not playing into this at this point? Is he still hurt? Because I would think that he should.
No, he's not. He's
should have
back
been
in training.
Yeah, he should have been on the bench. To me, there's no question. To me, if you look at the fact that with Lamela, I would say most of us would agree it's a 50-50 chance on if you're going to get a good performance. With Townsend, I would say it's closer to 7 out of 10. Now, clearly Lamela's best game is better than any game Townsend will ever have. However, given that all in all,
they're so few and far between.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, hang on, Ben. On their day, on those two players' day, who's better on the ball? Is Townsend better on the ball, or is Lamela? Who's more of a threat on the wing on their best day?
Truly on their day, without a question, to me, it's Lamela.
Okay.
And I would say that is because of the fact that, I mean, we're talking on their day. They're not going to get knocked off the ball. Lamela has, loads of things up his sleeve. And Townsend has that cut left shoot. And he's a one-trick pony. Now, I've said if he can master that one trick, he'll be one of the best players we have.
Yeah, but he's not going to do that because everybody knows, like you said, it's his style. He's going to blow up the wing. He's going to do 3 step-overs. He's going to cut into the left, and he's either going to shoot or he's going to pass backwards. That's it. Yeah. That's all he really brings to the table, and it's very predictable. The one thing about Lamela is that it is not predictable. You have no frigging clue what that guy is going to do.
Yeah,
we talked about it last year. Hoddle, Simon's idol, was a great player for this club. He is a legend of this club. But I have heard a lot of people say that if you go back and watch matches consecutively, that Hoddle would do your head in for the stuff he would do and lose the ball or errant passes or whatever.
It's true.
But you need to be able to do those things because when you finally pull it off, listen, I've been busting Eriksen's balls for a half a year. For a half a season. He did fuck all at the end of last season. I'm sorry, he did nothing.
No,
that pass to Chadley yesterday that Chadley had the heavy touch on was brilliant. That was world class. So
you want him to fuck up 20 times. I've never seen him make a 35, 40-yard pass.
Never. We've never seen that from him. That was brilliant. So go out there and screw up and lose possession. You know what? It happens.
Let's talk about one thing. I'd like to talk about this real quick because I think the thing with Eriksen really not having necessarily the greatest game, to me, Eriksen needs speed. And the reason he needs speed is because of the fact that it creates this nice big gap, this space that he can really work with. And when he has those pacey wingers, like if you look at the games where Walker or Townsend or even Rose, are just bombing up the flanks, Eriksen is doing numbers. He's just working them. And without that, Eriksen gets shut down constantly.
And I agree with that because he is probably, maybe this will be the one fault against Tom Carroll eventually when he does start seeing some pitch time. I think Eriksen is from a physical standpoint, the weakest player we have. He gets knocked off the ball if the wind blows more than 5 miles an hour.
See, I just think that you use him as a scapegoat for Lamela. I really do. I really, really do. I think that you putting heat on Eriksen it's like a deflection from Lamela. I mean,
Well, I should have been a lawyer, Sam.
Hold on. Sam. Back up, though. Let's even look at everything that we did up until the eventual substitution of Kane. I don't think Eriksen had that strong of a game either. Now, you are right that the worst player on Saturday, without question, was Lamela. However, are we right in criticizing Eriksen? And
yes.
Thank you, Simon.
He went missing second half. He was invisible. Was not there.
Yep.
With a number of other players, to be honest. Bentaleb did nothing when he came on. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
I think everyone thought Lamela was going to do something, but Bentaleb didn't either, and really he just flew under the radar. And let's face it, he was pony last week. Oh, I've used that word. He was pony last week, and Mason didn't come on. So he didn't, did he? No.
No.
So this week Mason starts, was a pit bull in the first half, and really did control that midfield along with Dembele and
I thought him and Dembele played a great match.
Good. Dyer was good.
Oh, Dyer to me is just the holy shit, I did not see that coming player of the first 2 matches, because Dyer has been rock solid compared to the rest of the pivot.
He is.
Well, he certainly wasn't in the Audi Cup, which he came in for a lot of flack in that, but he certainly proved.
Agreed.
And yesterday, I thought he was rock solid.
He's learning.
I mean, in the first 2 weeks in the EPL in this season, he as a DM has looked like Poch might actually have had a good idea there. Now, we still need to bring in a true defensive mid, i.e. Bender or, Christoph Kramer or whatever. We have to bring that player in because we don't have that.
And let me add to that. And we not only need that, and I think one of the reasons why we bottled this result was because we don't have any leaders. I mean, we don't have anybody that can take another player by the scruff and just say let's do this. You would have thought, to slightly defend Pochettino, is that Nabil is that kind of guy, right? I mean, he is kind of
so is Danny Rose at times.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we didn't have Rose at the disposal, but I think the team really felt that they were going to come in the second half and sort of lollygag about and somewhat coast to a 2-0 victory. And Eriksson was just ineffective. I mean, he wasn't terrible, but you never saw his number being called, and you never really saw him make the most of opportunities. Wow. And you know what? And a lot of this just comes down to the simple fact, which is the other larger issue that looms, is should it have been this way? Should we be in the second game of the season and be missing such key positions? A CDM, a backup forward to call on if Harry gets a nick or is tired, and this adds to this, and here we are.
So I think to me the most frustrating thing about this match is that every camp, the hashtag Levy out, the hashtag Poch out, every camp has a real valid point.
You're right,
Ben. I think that's what's so frustrating about this game, is because you can blame it on everything. You can blame it on Pochettino.
Because none of those individual camps are the answer, though. That's what does your head in.
I say this all the time. Poch doesn't play. He doesn't play. And players have to play, but players don't make substitutions, and players don't bring players in. So you're absolutely right. There's blame everywhere.
Yeah. And then let me ask this:
it's warranted. I mean, the people that are coming along and being like, "Oh, everyone's just a bunch of melts." No, this is very, very warranted. We were 2-0 up until the 72nd or 77th minute, something like that.
Yes. At home against Stoke.
Raw. It's unreal, and I don't want to come along and make it sound like all I'm doing is blaming everyone, because there were positives to take from it. I think our pressing up until the substitution looked great. I think Dembele out on right wing is decent. I thought he lost the ball much more than people were kind of saying in the first half. I watched the game multiple times, and I think that he lost the ball a decent amount of times, which was kind of...
Really? I thought he was our best player.
No, watched the first half, not the second half, and I would say even maybe the first quarter of the first half, Dembele lost the ball a decent amount of times. Now, that being said, Dembele was one of the best players, without question, and I think
I've never seen him run with that kind of purpose, right? Like, he was... tearing all over the pitch.
I thought he put in, for our side, a man-of-the-match performance.
Looked like he went forward for a change.
Yes.
I want to go on record as saying that I'm not saying I think Dembele did badly. I think he did very well. However, I think even then there are criticisms to make, with just like every game.
Well, one of the reasons that Stoke always gives us such problems, and they always give everybody a lot of problems, is because just like a couple of other teams in the Prem, they are defensively sound. They do not just have breakdowns like some of the teams that are more attacking have breakdowns. You'll watch Arsenal play. They play such a high line. They will get killed on the counterattack. But for them, it's worth it to be able to attack the way that they do. For us, I think we're still trying to find our footing in that regard.
Which is absurd if you think about the fact that Pochettino was a defender.
And I agree with that. I mean, I totally agree with that. But it doesn't... You can't take his legs and put them on someone's body or his mentality and put it into them. He tries to do that through coaching, but one of the ways that I wanted to try to deflect this a little bit or move it around, I wanted to direct this to Simon, because you've been around this club for so long and you probably know a little bit more about the intricacies of the game. When you start off a match and you're running 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1, whatever it was that we were running, and then all of a sudden you're bringing on substitutions and you're putting them possibly into places where they're not familiar either with the formation per se, should that even matter? I mean, are players players, and it doesn't matter about the formation? Their responsibilities are basically the same. Or when you switch from